Dangerous levels of salmonella, banned pesticides, and BPA-laced packaging were just found in tomatoes from some of America's most trusted grocery stores. That bright red tomato sitting on your counter right now might look perfectly ripe, but slice into the wrong one, and what you're really eating is mold toxins, post-harvest chemical coatings, and microplastics from packaging liners disguised as farm-fresh produce. If this has been your go-to store for 10, 20, 30 years, everything we found has been building up in your body that entire time. Today, we're breaking down 11 grocery stores that failed on tomato safety, including 2 most people consider premium, plus the 3 places that actually tested clean and deliver what the label promises. Coming in at number 11, Dollar Tree. $1.25 for fresh tomatoes sounds like a miracle when you're stretching every grocery dollar. Dollar Tree now stocks produce in thousands of locations, and for anyone watching their budget, those bright red tomatoes in the bin look like a lifeline. They're not. They're a trap. Pick one up. Feel the soft spots under your thumb. That slight give isn't ripeness. It's decay already spreading beneath the skin. These tomatoes are sourced from the lowest cost suppliers available, bottom-of-the-barrel farms, where quality control is a suggestion, not a standard. State inspectors have documented Dollar Tree produce arriving at stores already past safe consumption dates, with visible mold spreading across entire flats. The stores themselves lack proper refrigeration infrastructure, meaning even tomatoes that arrive borderline acceptable degrade rapidly under fluorescent lights and room temperature air. Here's what mold on a tomato actually means for your body. Mycotoxins. Invisible compounds produced by fungal growth that survive even after you cut away the visible mold. They don't wash off, they don't cook out, they accumulate in your liver and kidneys over time, straining organs that are already working harder with every passing year. For anyone managing diabetes who depends on fresh vegetables to stabilize blood sugar, or families feeding growing children from these bins, moldy tomatoes can trigger dangerous blood sugar spikes and gastrointestinal infections that land vulnerable people in the emergency room. $1.25 for a tomato, $1.25 for a hospital visit waiting to happen. Dollar Tree isn't selling produce. They're selling the illusion of access to fresh food. The price tag is the bait. Your health is the cost. Think paying more guarantees something safer? The next store on this list charges full price and delivers the same betrayal. At number 10, Dollar General. They built their grocery expansion on a promise, bringing fresh food to rural communities that other chains abandoned. In thousands of small towns across America, Dollar General is the only store within 30 miles that sells a tomato. That monopoly is the problem. When you're the only option, quality becomes optional. Multiple state agriculture inspections have flagged Dollar General locations for produce that arrives bruised, partially spoiled, and well past peak freshness. The delivery trucks come infrequently. The refrigeration units are undersized and poorly maintained. The tomatoes sit in back rooms and on shelves far longer than any fresh produce should. Squeeze one. That mealy, grainy texture under the skin isn't a variety issue. It's cold chain failure. These tomatoes were stored at incorrect temperatures during transit, breaking down the cellular structure and creating the perfect breeding ground for bacterial contamination. Listeria, E. coli, salmonella all thrive in produce that's been temperature abused. For anyone taking immunosuppressant medication who relies on fresh vegetables for daily nutrition, or families in rural areas with no alternative grocery source, a contaminated tomato isn't a stomachache. It's a hospitalization. The mycotoxins from mold exposure compound the damage, straining kidneys and liver function in people already managing chronic conditions. Dollar General spent billions expanding into food deserts. They could have invested in proper cold storage. They could have increased delivery frequency. They could have hired trained produce managers. Fresh food for forgotten communities. That was the tagline. Forgotten quality was the reality. If the bargain stores can't keep tomatoes safe, surely the big national chains do better. You'd think so. You'd be wrong. Number 9 is Food Lion, the friendly neighborhood grocery store. The one with the loyalty card, the weekly circular, the familiar faces at the checkout. Food Lion markets itself as the community store, where you know what you're getting, except you don't. Past USDA investigations and undercover reports revealed something ugly behind those friendly aisles. Food Lion locations were caught redating expired products, slapping new stickers over old sell-by dates, and putting expired meat and produce back on shelves. The tomatoes sitting in that produce section might carry a date that says fresh. The original label underneath tells a very different story. Improper cold storage temperatures were documented across multiple locations. Tomatoes held above safe refrigeration thresholds develop bacterial colonies invisibly. The skin still looks red, the flesh still feels firm, but inside, pathogens are multiplying every hour. A tomato that looks perfect can harbor enough bacteria to trigger serious foodborne illness. Pick one up in Food Lion. Smell the stem end. Fresh tomatoes have a bright, green, vine-like scent. A tomato that's been sitting under warm lights for days past. Its true expiration smells flat and faintly sour. That sourness is decomposition you can't see yet. They redated the meat. They redated the produce. Your trust was the only thing with an honest expiration. For people recovering from surgery who need clean nutrition to heal, or anyone with compromised kidney function where foodborne illness triggers dangerous electrolyte imbalances, this isn't a minor inconvenience. It's a medical emergency dressed up as a Wednesday grocery run. Food Lion put fresh dates on old food and called it customer service. See the pattern forming? Budget stores cut corners. Neighborhood stores hide behind loyalty cards. So surely the warehouse clubs, with their massive buying power, source something better. Let's find out. Number 8. Sam's Club. Those bulk tomato flats look like the smartest buy in the store. 20 Roma tomatoes for $6. A case of canned San Marzano style for under 10. For families cooking big meals or anyone who batch preps sauces for the freezer, Sam's Club feels like winning until you look closer. Sam's Club shares suppliers with Walmart. Same farms, same distribution networks, same quality control gaps, just repackaged in bulk quantities. Customer complaints have documented tomatoes arriving with surface mold visible through the plastic wrap. Not hidden mold. Mold you can see before you even open the package. Their store-brand canned tomatoes carry a quieter danger. Independent testing has found higher levels of added citric acid and sodium than what the nutrition labels disclose. Hidden sodium is a silent escalator. You think you're controlling your intake by reading labels. The labels are lying. For anyone managing hypertension who carefully measures sodium in every meal, or families with young children whose developing kidneys process sodium far less efficiently than adults, those undisclosed milligrams add up across every can, every sauce, every soup you build from a base you thought was clean. Even small excess amounts of sodium can trigger fluid retention, blood pressure spikes, and in people with congestive heart failure, genuine medical emergencies, bulk savings, bulk deception. 20 tomatoes for $6. Your heart health wasn't part of the deal. Sam's Club sells volume. They don't sell transparency. If their own labels can't be trusted to tell the truth about sodium, what else is hiding in those warehouse aisles? The next store has been deceiving shoppers for even longer. Now at number 7, Safeway. That signature select house brand gives the impression of carefully curated quality. The packaging is clean, the marketing is polished. The name itself implies someone at Safeway personally selected each product for your family. Consumer testing tells a different story. Safeway's conventional tomatoes carry some of the highest pesticide residue loads among all major chains in America. Not the discount chains, not the dollar stores. Safeway, the store where people pay mid-range prices expecting mid-range quality. Those pesticides aren't just on the surface. They're systemic, meaning they're absorbed into the flesh of the tomato during growth. Washing doesn't remove them. Peeling doesn't eliminate them. Cooking doesn't destroy them. They're inside every bite, and their canned varieties compound the problem. Safeway has been painfully slow to transition to BPA-free can linings. BPA, bisphenol A, is an endocrine disruptor that leaches from packaging into acidic foods. Tomatoes are highly acidic. Every can of Safeway tomatoes sitting on the shelf is essentially marinating in a chemical that mimics estrogen in your body. Signature, select. Signature, deception. For anyone on cholesterol medication whose body is already fighting hormonal disruption, or people managing diabetes where endocrine interference worsens insulin resistance, chronic BPA exposure doesn't just add a new problem, it amplifies every existing one. Safeway charges premium adjacent prices for the same contaminated product the discount stores sell for less. At least the discount stores are honest about being cheap. Safeway wraps the same danger in better packaging and calls it curated. If mid-range prices don't buy you safety, maybe the biggest retail names in America do better. Spoiler, they don't. If this is helping you make smarter choices at the store, hit subscribe. It's free, and it means you'll never miss these investigations. Number 6, Target. Walk into Target's grocery section and everything feels elevated. The lighting is warmer. The displays are cleaner. The produce section looks like it belongs in a food magazine. That's by design. Target spent billions making their grocery aisles feel premium, curated, almost boutique. The tomatoes tell a very different story. Target sources from the same large-scale industrial farms as the budget chains we've already exposed. Same fields, same pesticide protocols, same post-harvest chemical treatments. The only difference is the shelf they land on and the markup you pay. Target's limited produce turnover means those tomatoes often sit longer than they would at a high-volume store like Walmart or Kroger. Every day a tomato sits under retail lighting, it loses vital nutrients. Lycopene, the powerful antioxidant that gives tomatoes their red color and protects your cardiovascular system, degrades with time and improper storage. Vitamin C breaks down even faster. By the time you bring that Target tomato home, slice it into your salad and eat it thinking you're doing something healthy, you might be consuming a nutritionally hollow shell of what a tomato should deliver. It looks red. It feels firm. It has almost nothing left inside that matters. For people who depend on dietary lycopene for heart protection, or anyone eating tomatoes specifically for their antioxidant and anti-inflammatory benefits, buying nutrient-depleted produce means missing the very health benefits you're shopping for. You're paying premium prices for produce that's lost its purpose. Target sells the aesthetic of quality. The tomatoes deliver the reality of industrial farming with a longer shelf life and fewer nutrients. Pretty displays, empty nutrition. The next store on this list was caught lying about what's actually inside their cans, and it's in almost every American kitchen right now. Number 5. Kroger, America's largest traditional grocery chain. More locations than any competitor. More trust than almost any name in food retail. Millions of families have built their weekly routines around Kroger for generations. That loyalty deserves better than what Kroger delivers. Independent lab analyses have found that Kroger's store-brand canned tomatoes and even their fresh varieties sometimes contain elevated sodium levels that exceed what the packaging claims. But the deeper issue is BPA. Kroger has been conspicuously slow to phase out BPA-containing liners in their canned goods. Their canned diced tomatoes, crushed tomatoes, and tomato sauce, the staples of weeknight dinners across America, have tested positive for BPA residues that leach directly into the acidic tomato product inside. BPA doesn't just sit in the can, it migrates into the food, and once ingested, it mimics estrogen and disrupts your endocrine system at the molecular level. Open a can of Kroger tomatoes. That metallic undertone you sometimes taste isn't your imagination. It's the lining interacting with the acid in the tomatoes. The biggest grocery chain in America. The most trusted name in your kitchen. They could afford to switch every can to BPA-free lining tomorrow morning. They haven't. For anyone on blood pressure medication who carefully limits sodium, or families feeding children whose developing bodies are exponentially more sensitive to endocrine disruptors, Kroger's cans are delivering hidden chemicals with every casserole, every chili, every pot of Sunday sauce. Kroger built an empire on your weekly grocery trip. They could protect you with every single can they sell. They chose profit instead. Drop a comment if Kroger is your regular store. Let's see how many of us have been trusting those cans. You just saw what America's biggest chain is hiding, so surely paying for a warehouse membership gets you something safer. Not even close. Number 4. Costco. Those massive flats of tomatoes look like the deal of the century. Bright red, neatly stacked, shrink-wrapped in quantities that scream value. Costco moves enormous volume, which should mean fresher product, faster turnover, better quality. The math doesn't always work that way. Costco has sourced tomatoes from Mexican farms that received FDA import alerts for salmonella contamination, not rumored contamination. Documented government-flagged contamination from farms actively on federal watch lists. Salmonella on your dinner table, courtesy of a membership card. The bulk packaging creates its own separate problem. A flat of 20 tomatoes is too many for most households to consume before spoilage begins. By day 4, the bottom tomatoes are developing soft spots beneath the plastic. By day 6, invisible mold colonies are forming beneath the skin. By day 8, you're eating produce your body has to fight instead of benefit from. That's the bulk trap. You bought 20 to save money. You'll eat 12 that are fine, 4 that are questionable, and throw away 4 that are rotting. The savings evaporate. The exposure to contamination doesn't. Salmonella infections in older adults are not the mild food poisoning younger people shake off in a day or two. For anyone with reduced stomach acid from age or medication, or families where grandparents share meals prepared from the same bulk ingredients, salmonella triggers severe dehydration, hospitalization, dangerous blood pressure drops, and in serious cases, kidney failure. Costco could verify every single farm on its supply chain. They choose volume over verification. 20 tomatoes, 1 contaminated farm. The bulk deal your body can't afford. Think you've been making the smart choice by switching to a beloved regional chain? Wait until you see what trusted really means. Number 3. Meijer, the beloved Midwest chain. A family name synonymous with quality in Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, and across the heartland. Generations of loyal shoppers trust Meijer's produce department the way they trust a neighbor's handshake. That trust is being systematically exploited. State health inspections at multiple Meijer locations have cited improper produce, misting systems. The sprayers designed to keep vegetables looking fresh and appealing on the display. When those systems malfunction or aren't properly maintained, they don't just fail to preserve freshness. They create warm, moist environments where dangerous bacteria flourish and multiply. Listeria and E. coli thrive in exactly these conditions, colonizing tomato surfaces while the misting system makes everything look dewy and inviting. The water droplets aren't freshness. They're bacterial incubators disguised as quality. Worse still, Meijer's tomato suppliers have appeared on FDA watch lists for the use of unapproved pesticides. Not just elevated levels of approved chemicals, completely unapproved substances that haven't been evaluated for human safety at any dose. Chemicals with no established tolerance level, no published safety data, and no understanding of how they interact with the medications millions of Americans depend on daily. Pick up a Meijer tomato. Those fine water droplets clinging to the skin look appetizing. That sheen of moisture is exactly where bacteria concentrate and multiply. For anyone taking blood thinners whose medication regimen demands predictable, uncontaminated nutrition, or families with immunocompromised members where a single listeria exposure can prove fatal, Meijer's misting malfunction isn't just an inconvenience. It's a threat the store itself manufactured, a neighbor's handshake, and a contaminated misting system. Midwest hospitality on the sign, bacteria on the tomatoes. The next store is one almost everyone in America has shopped at this month, and what's hiding inside will genuinely shock you. Number 2, Aldi, the no-frills miracle. The store that proved you don't need fancy aisles or expensive marketing to sell affordable groceries. Budget shoppers swear by Aldi with an almost religious devotion. The prices are unbeatable. The simplicity is refreshing. The tomatoes are a gamble you don't know you're taking. Multiple customer reports and state agriculture inspections have flagged Aldi tomatoes for wildly inconsistent ripeness within the same package. One firm, one mushy, one green, one overripe. That inconsistency isn't just an annoyance. It's evidence of cold chain breaks during transportation and storage. When tomatoes bounce between temperature zones, their cellular structure collapses from the inside out. The result is that mealy, grainy, waterlogged texture that makes you wonder if this was ever actually a good tomato. It wasn't, at least not by the time it reached you. But the texture problem masks a more serious finding. Conventional Aldi tomatoes have shown higher than expected pesticide residue levels in state testing. Not illegal levels, not recall triggering levels, just consistently higher than what other chains deliver at similar price points. Pesticide accumulation is a slow poison. One tomato won't hurt you. 1,000 tomatoes over 5 years will. For anyone whose liver and kidney function has naturally declined with age, or people taking daily medication where pesticide residues compete with the same detoxification pathways your prescriptions depend on, every contaminated tomato adds friction to a system already working at capacity. Aldi saves you money at the register. The cost shows up later, in your blood work, in your energy levels, in the slow accumulation of chemicals your body can't flush fast enough. No frills, no quality control, no accountability. What's the worst tomato you've ever brought home from the store? Drop it in the comments. That was the budget champion. The store people defend with their wallets and their pride. But the #1 spot goes to the store most Americans trust more than any other. And it deserves that spot the least. Number 1. Walmart, the biggest grocery retailer on earth. More Americans buy tomatoes from Walmart than from any other store in the country. That reach is exactly what makes this so dangerous. Walmart sells massive volumes at rock-bottom prices, and the machinery required to deliver those prices at that scale leaves no room for quality. Repeated complaints document premature spoilage, tomatoes that look ripe on the shelf but turn to mush within 24 hours of getting home. Waxy coatings applied to mask aging, a cosmetic trick that makes a 3-week-old tomato shine like it was picked yesterday, and sourcing from farms that have received FDA warning letters for sanitation violations, not warnings from consumer groups. FDA letters. Government documentation that these farms have hygiene problems serious enough to warrant federal intervention. Walmart continues buying from them because they're cheap. Slice into a Walmart tomato. Notice how the flesh is pale pink instead of deep red. That pallor means it was picked green, gassed with ethylene to force surface color, and coated to stop you from seeing what's happening underneath. The tomato was never ripe. It was manufactured to look ripe. Engineered produce for engineered savings. For people managing kidney disease who need clean produce free of chemical post-harvest treatments, or families feeding children who absorb these coatings and chemicals at far higher rates than adults, Walmart's tomatoes deliver the opposite of nutrition. Every waxy bite adds chemical burden to organs already under strain. Walmart could source from verified farms. They could invest in cold chain integrity. They could stop buying from flagged operations. They sell $200 billion in groceries annually. They could afford to care. They chose the cheapest path instead, the most trusted store in America, the most dangerous tomato on this list. Your weekly Walmart run built their empire. Your health wasn't part of the business plan. 11 stores exposed. 11 places where the tomatoes in your cart might be doing more harm than good. But don't give up on tomatoes entirely. 3 sources prove it's still possible to buy clean, nutrient-rich, genuinely safe tomatoes. What you buy next matters more than what you throw away today. Safe pick number 1. Whole Foods Market. There's a reason Whole Foods charges more, and for once, the premium actually buys something real. Whole Foods enforces some of the strictest produce sourcing standards in American grocery retail, banning over 70 pesticides that every other chain on this list still allows on their shelves. Their tomatoes consistently score among the lowest for pesticide residues in independent testing, and their organic selection carries verified USDA organic certification with full traceability back to the specific farm that grew them. Pick up a Whole Foods tomato. Feel the weight of it. Smell the stem end. That bright, almost herbal sweetness is what a tomato is supposed to smell like when it was actually allowed to ripen on the vine instead of being gassed in a warehouse. The color runs deep red through the entire flesh, not pale pink in the center like the ethylene-forced specimens at Walmart. Lycopene content in properly ripened tomatoes is dramatically higher, which means the heart-protective, anti-inflammatory benefits you're eating tomatoes for are actually present in every single bite. For anyone on statin medication whose body needs every antioxidant advantage it can get, or people managing prostate health where lycopene intake directly correlates with outcomes, Whole Foods delivers the nutritional payload other stores only pretend to offer. The produce department isn't performing freshness, it's delivering it. The price difference between Whole Foods and Walmart on a pound of tomatoes is roughly $2. $2 for tomatoes that are actually what tomatoes are supposed to be. Safe pick number 2, Trader Joe's. The quirky store with the Hawaiian shirts and the cult following actually backs up its personality with real substance. Trader Joe's sources tomatoes through a tightly controlled private label supply chain that cuts out middlemen and ensures fewer days between harvest and your kitchen counter. Fewer days means more nutrients, more flavor, and less opportunity for contamination during extended storage and transportation. Their canned tomatoes deserve special attention. While Kroger, Safeway, and Sam's Club are still lining cans with BPA-containing materials, Trader Joe's made the switch to BPA-free lined cans across their entire tomato product line. Their organic canned varieties have earned high marks in Consumer Reports testing for low sodium and clean ingredient lists, meaning what the label says is actually what's inside. Open a can of Trader Joe's organic tomatoes. Notice the deep red color, the thick consistency, the absence of that metallic aftertaste that plagues conventional canned tomatoes from the major chains. That clean taste is the absence of BPA and hidden additives doing their work. For anyone managing blood pressure who needs absolute certainty about sodium content, or families who build 3 or 4 meals a week from canned tomato products, Trader Joe's delivers the kind of reliability the major chains have repeatedly failed to provide. No hidden sodium spikes, no endocrine-disrupting packaging, no gap between the label and the lab results. Every can matches its promise. In a market defined by broken promises, that kind of consistency is worth the trip. Safe pick. Number 3. Your local farmer's market. This is where the equation changes completely. Forget the industrial supply chain. Forget the warehouses, the ethylene gas chambers, the waxy coatings, the redated labels, and the deceptive packaging. Farmers market tomatoes are typically harvested within 24 to 48 hours of sale, sometimes the very same morning you buy them. You can hold a tomato that was on the vine yesterday. You can ask the person who grew it exactly what was sprayed, what wasn't, and how the soil was managed season after season. That transparency doesn't exist anywhere else in the American grocery system. Many small farm vendors follow organic or low-spray practices, even without formal certification, because the cost of that paperwork is money small family farms can't always justify. The produce speaks for itself. Cut into a farmer's market tomato in August and the difference is visceral. Seeds surrounded by thick gel, deep red flesh with no pale hollow core, juice that actually runs down your cutting board, and a flavor so concentrated it reminds you what tomatoes tasted like before the grocery industry optimized every trace of character out of them. The higher lycopene, vitamin C, and potassium content in freshly picked tomatoes directly supports cardiovascular health, blood sugar regulation, and bone density. For anyone rebuilding their diet after a health scare, or families who want their children to understand what real food actually tastes like, farmers markets deliver nutrition no chain store can match. The season is short, the supply is limited, but the tomatoes are real. And that matters. 11 stores, 11 lies, one produce drawer that needs cleaning out. Subscribe now. And if you're watching on TV, tap your remote so you never get blindsided again.